What's going on, y'all? Attorney Tom here. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to the closing arguments of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. I'm going to be periodically pausing the video to give you my input. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I tell you who I think did a better job.
Good morning. On May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into a courthouse in Los Angeles, California to get a no-notice ex-parte restraining order against Mr. Depp. And in doing so, ruined his life by falsely telling the world that she was a survivor of domestic abuse at the hands of Mr. Depp. Today, on May 27th, 2022, exactly 6 years later, we ask you to give Mr. Depp his life back by telling the world that Mr. Depp is not the abuser Ms. Heard said he is, and hold Ms. Heard accountable for her lies. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you probably know by now, my name is Camille Vasquez.
Man, seeing good trial lawyers gets me amped up. Ms. Vasquez, right from the beginning, she makes it clear what this case is about. This case is not about the money. It's not about giving Johnny Depp tens of millions of dollars in damages. This is a case about giving Johnny his life back. And Ms. Vasquez has let the jury know that this case is so much more than just money damages before she even introduces herself or has revisited the evidence. Let's see where this goes.
You have been entrusted with a serious task. What is at stake in this trial is a man's good name. Even more than that, what is at stake at this trial is a man's life. The life that he lost when he was accused of a heinous crime, and the life he could live when he is finally vindicated. Exactly 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into court and filed a false report of domestic abuse against her husband of 15 months, Johnny Depp. The scene was a setup. She tipped off the paparazzi so they would be waiting. They knew exactly where she would pause, which side of her face to photograph. And the photos captured what she wanted them to see, the image of a battered woman. What the paparazzi did not know is that the dark mark on her face mysteriously appeared 6 days after last seeing Mr. Depp. It was a lie. She knew it, Mr. Depp knew it, and the multiple witnesses you heard from who saw her that week of May 21st, 2016 also knew it. But the world only saw what she wanted them to see. 2 years later, when promoting the biggest role of her career until this trial, Ms. Heard presented her...
Did y'all hear that? Promoting the biggest role of her career until this trial. Insinuating that she is acting during this trial. That is... Ms. Vasquez is throwing some shade.
The headline of the op-ed featured the term sexual violence, even though she had never before accused her ex-husband of such a heinous crime. But what was happening behind closed doors was quite different from what Ms. Heard presented to the world. The exact opposite, in fact. There is an abuser in this courtroom, but it is not Mr. Depp. And there is a victim of domestic abuse in this courtroom, but it is not Ms. Heard. The evidence presented at this trial has shown that Ms. Heard is in fact the abuser, and Mr. Depp the abused.
You know, the only thing, and I know y'all can't see it because I'm in the way, but the only slight critique or criticism I would have is it appears Camille Vasquez is reading her paper, and she's spending a lot of time looking down, reading, rather than looking at the jury and giving her closing argument. Usually, if you have pieces of paper with you while you're giving closing arguments, they're more like bullet points, but it appears she might have her whole closing argument written out and she's just reading from it. Again, it's a stylistic thing. It's not outcome determinative, but the problem when you do this is it's really hard not to use it as a crutch, because when you know everything is written out in front of you, you kind of tend to look down a lot. But of course, your situation can vary depending on what kind of court you're in. Like, for instance, they have a lectern right in front of the jury in the closing arguments, at least in Texas, where I'm a lawyer, I'm a practicing lawyer. I've watched trials, I've been in trials, all that kind of stuff. We actually don't even have a lectern. We can kind of walk around the well. You don't get too close to the jury because you don't want to get in their space, but you know, you're also not pigeonholed behind something. something to take note of.
Mr. Depp experienced persistent verbal, physical, and emotional abuse by Ms. Heard during their relationship. And when their relationship was over, Ms. Heard inflicted the greatest and cruelest injury of all. She publicly and falsely named Mr. Depp as the abuser. Ms. Heard never thought she would be held accountable, never thought that she would have to face her abuser. She never thought she would have her supposed mountain of evidence vetted. She never thought that Mr. Depp would tell you, the jury, and the world that he was the real victim of domestic abuse. She said it in her own words. The evidence presented at this trial shows that this is not the only time that Ms. Heard disclosed a sexual assault at a convenient time for purposes of litigation she's involved in. The first time Ms. Heard claimed that Mr. Depp sexually assaulted her in the Bahamas in December 2015 was after Tara Roberts, the manager of Mr. Depp's island, submitted a sworn statement in the UK action describing the incident she testified to in this courtroom, where Ms. Heard chased Mr. Depp out of the house, was yelling and then pleading with Mr. Depp to stay while clawing at his hair and clothes, and left Mr. Depp with an injury to his face. That's the first time she disclosed it, after there was contrary evidence. Ms. Heard testified about another incident just 2 weeks after the events in Australia, where Mr. Depp supposedly attacked Ms. Heard and almost pushed her sister Whitney down the stairs. Whitney is the only witness that you heard from that backs up Ms. Heard's version of events. She's it. And the only witness, other than Ms. Heard, who claims to have seen Mr. Depp physically attack Ms. Heard. But just like Ms. Heard's version of the events in Australia, her testimony about the staircase incident and that of her sister Whitney's just doesn't square up with the other evidence in this trial. Their testimony is contradicted by the testimony of Travis McGivern and Debbie Lloyd, who were there that night.
Okay, so essentially the theme of Ms. Vasquez's closing argument so far is Amber Heard versus the world. Who do you believe? You can either only believe one of them. Either Amber Heard is right or everybody else is right. She's painting this picture that Amber Heard's testimony contradicts everybody else's testimony, and somehow Amber Heard is alleging that everybody else's testimony is somehow a lie, or they are working for Johnny Depp in some way. So it's either you believe one person or the dozens of witnesses who they had come and testify. And I think that's a pretty strong argument. That's a great theme for Ms. Vasquez and her case.
And then we have May 21st, 2016. Ms. Heard testified that Mr. Depp threw a phone at her face, causing a visible injury. Ms. Heard has shown you pictures she claims to show this injury. But these photographs are not to be trusted. You heard from Mr. Neumeister that, like many of the photographs Ms. Heard has presented in this case, these photos were stored in a photo editing application. And these photos show signs of manipulation.
Y'all know the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words? Well, that holds true in trial as well. Oftentimes, if you can have a really solid demonstrative, that's going to be the backbone of whatever kind of point you're trying to make. And I think here, you can clearly see how drastically different these two images are. They're the same picture. They just, one of them is clearly edited. I think that kind of stuff really resonates with juries.
Photographs were taken at the exact same time and have the exact same file name. But they are visually different. One shows significantly more redness on Ms. Heard's face than the other, which doesn't show any injury at all. Ms. Heard testified that the difference is explained by turning on a light. But there is no way Ms. Heard could have taken a picture, turned on a light, and then taken another picture with every hair in the exact same place within the same second. It's impossible.
Again, Amber Heard versus the world. She is saying over and over again that Amber Heard's testimony is not credible, and she's giving example after example after example.
It is disturbing to think that Ms. Heard would make up the horrific tales of abuse that she testified to in this courtroom. But this case doesn't come down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp. This case comes down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp, Christy Dombrowski, Sean Bett, Malcolm Connolly, Travis McGivern, Starling Jenkins, Keenan Wyatt, Dr. Kipper, nurses Debbie Lloyd and Erin Filati, Tara Roberts, Ben King, Kate James, Kate Moss, Dr. Colbert, Morgan Knight, Morgan Tremaine, Officers Melissa Sines, Officer Tyler Haddon, Officer William Gatlin, and Beverly Leonard.
That was an extremely powerful way for Ms. Vasquez to end her portion of the closing arguments. What are the highlights? What are we going to take away from this? Well, one, what is this case about? This case is about giving a man his life back. What is the theme of this case? The theme is Amber Heard versus the world. Who are you going to believe? You can only believe one story. Is it going to be Amber Heard or everybody else? Ms. Vasquez did a great job. She touched on some very sensitive subjects. Quite frankly, I think it was strategic that Ms. Vasquez is a woman and they tasked her at handling the sexual abuse issues, because obviously that's very sensitive and you don't want to come off to the jury as demeaning or mansplaining or anything like that. But more so than just that, throughout this entire trial, Ms. Vasquez has done an awesome job. She's clearly a fantastic trial lawyer. I've learned a lot from what she has done, and I've written down in my notebook, my trial lawyer notebook, some tips, some trade secrets that maybe Ms. Vasquez showed us. Good job, Ms. Vasquez.
And to talk more about that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and my friend, Mr. Chu.
Okay, so this is actually a pretty fairly common technique, at least in the world of catastrophic personal injury lawyer. When we try cases, we often have two lawyers. We have one lawyer who establishes liability, all the technical stuff. And then once we establish the liability, we then turn it over to a lawyer who focuses on damages. That sounds exactly like what they're doing here. Camille Vasquez came up, said basically Amber Heard's liable. She lied, XYZ. It was defamatory. These instances or alleged instances weren't real. Now let's talk about the harm that was caused. And to do that, I'm going to bring over Ben Chu, who is going to talk about the harm caused. So liability, damages, they split it up. Now let's hear this part.
The contrary, ladies and gentlemen, you heard Kate Moss 2 days ago testify. This is a woman who has never testified in any proceeding ever, a very private person, testified that Mr. Depp never abused her and that Ms. Heard lied to you. And she lied to you twice when she told you.
Objection, Your Honor. That, Ms. Sure.
Very rare, and it's very dicey to object in a closing argument. In a closing argument, you can pretty much say whatever you want, so long as it's supported by the evidence or there's a reasonable inference that's supported by the evidence. Obviously, they're objecting, saying, you know, hey, look, judge, it's totally improper to characterize Ms. Heard as a liar. The evidence doesn't support that. It's totally outside the bounds of closing arguments, but that's probably a pretty tough argument to make. It's probably a losing argument to make, in my opinion. Again, I am not calling Ms. Heard a liar. What I am saying is, in the context of this trial, in closing arguments, as a plaintiff's lawyer or as a lawyer for your party, you are allowed to make those kinds of arguments.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying, Ms. Heard lied to you twice.
Yeah. The judge said, yeah, he could say that. It's up for the jury to determine credibility. First thing he said back was, yeah, Ms. Heard lied to you twice. So Amber Heard's team clearly lost that objection.
She suggested to you that Mr. Depp pushed Kate Moss down the stairs. You told her, you heard her say just 2 days ago that Mr. Depp never did that, and he never hit her, and he never kicked her. That was one of...
Objection, Your Honor. That's not what she testified to.
Exactly
we
what
just
she
discussed
testified.
Woo! Okay, there's a lot of really good lawyering here, and we're going to explain what a talking objection here is. Okay, so Amber Heard's team objected to this line of questioning. Look at what the lawyer says instantly. Look at what Ben Chu says instantly.
That was one of...
Objection, Your Honor. That's not what she testified to.
Exactly
we
what
just
she
discussed that.
testified.
See that? He said that is exactly what she testified to. He's not necessarily talking to the judge, even though he is. He made that audible. He said it right away so the jury hears it. I just think that's really good lawyering on Ben Chu's part. It's his closing argument. He gets a lot of deference. I don't know what the heck Amber Heard's team is thinking, objecting during the closing argument. It's a losing battle.
Thank you, Your Honor. They're still at it. Ms. Heard.
See, he made the point. Amber Heard's legal team made the point for Ben Chew, basically.
And her lawyers have spent much of this trial talking about drugs and alcohol. Mr. Depp is no saint, and he has never claimed to be one. He has made mistakes in his life, as we all have. Yes, he has struggled with drugs and alcohol, but you never heard him deny that. We told you that in the opening statement. He owns his flaws. He admits to them. He told you all about them. But he is not a violent abuser. He's not an abuser, as Ms. Heard claims. And he did not and does not deserve to have his life, his legacy, destroyed by a vicious lie. And this is, as Ms. Vasquez said, this is the 6th anniversary of that. There is a world of difference between having substance abuse problems and being a physical abuser.
You have to own the bad facts in your case. You have to own them. That's being a trial lawyer 101. Your plaintiff or your client is not going to be perfect. They're not going to be a saint. No matter what kind of case you have, there are going to be bad facts. That doesn't mean you don't have a case. But if you hide from them, you're going to seem shady to the jury. They came out. They're admitting that Johnny Depp is no saint. They're admitting that he has some substance abuse issues. That doesn't mean that he abused Amber Heard. That's their argument.
That was her first allegation, and you know why, and you know that wasn't true. Then, years after the fact, for the first time, she accused him of raping her. The lies have grown and metastasized over time, and they need to be stopped. And those false accusations have caused more harm to Mr. Depp than her fists ever did.
Wow, that's a powerful line. Her accusations caused more damage than her fists ever did.
You will see here the first page of the verdict form relating to Mr. Depp's claim for defamation against Ms. Heard. There are 3 pages relating to Mr. Depp's claim, one for each of the 3 defamatory statements in the op-ed.
This is an extremely important part of a lawyer's duty in the closing argument, and that's to go over the jury instructions. There's a legendary trial lawyer by the name of Jerry Spence. I've read his books, I've listened to his seminars, all of that kind of stuff. And he gives this very simple antidote, word of wisdom type deal. And he says, how do you get the jury to do what you want? And the answer is, you tell them, you ask them. And there's no way to ask the jury to do what you want if you don't go through the jury instructions with them. Here, Ben Chew is going to go through all of the jury instructions with the jury, and he's going to tell them how he wants the jury to answer. He's going to say, it was a statement made or published by Amber Heard. I'm going to want you to answer yes. The statement was about Mr. Depp. I'm going to want you to answer yes. Was the statement false? I'm going to want you to answer yes. He's going to ask the jury to do what he wants, because why wouldn't you? And I say this because it sounds intuitive, right? But you would be really surprised, and I'm guilty of this too. Oftentimes, lawyers don't really put enough emphasis on the jury instructions, in my opinion. Okay, that's it for this video. The next video I'm gonna make is going to go over Amber Heard's closing arguments, and then the video after that is gonna be about the rebuttal. So ultimately, how do I think Johnny Depp's team did in their closing arguments? I think they did great. I think they got an A, quite frankly. The only critique I would have of both Camille Vasquez and Ben Chew is they were looking at their notes a whole lot. But in the grand scheme of things, I think that is very small and a stylistic difference. All right, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.
He's a catastrophic injury attorney who accidentally became a YouTuber. Attorney Talk.